When Australians first arrive in Canada, there's an immediate sense of comfort. The language is familiar, the humor feels recognizable, and people seem just as easygoing. You expect it to feel like home. But within days, something subtle begins to unsettle you. It's not bad, just different. The streets are quieter. People speak softly, almost carefully. Even the air feels heavier, colder, carrying a stillness that seeps into everything. You notice how organized everything is. The roads, the buses, even the way people queue at coffee shops. It's a calmness that Australians aren't used to. Back home, life hums with noise. The ocean, the birds, the laughter that spills into the streets. In Canada, it's the silence that speaks. The calm is beautiful, but also strange. You start to realize that while both countries share language and lifestyle, the energy couldn't be more different. Australia lives in the open, in light, warmth, and spontaneity. Canada lives in rhythm, quiet, measured, deliberate. It's the same world viewed through a colder lens. Australians pride themselves on being friendly, but in a raw, unfiltered way. Teasing your mates is affection. Sarcasm is a love language. In Canada, though, that attitude lands differently. Here, people are polite, almost poetically so. They apologize even when you bump into them. They smile when they disagree. They'll thank you twice for something you barely did. It's charming, but confusing to an Aussie. You start to hold back your humor, afraid it might offend. Your casual bluntness suddenly feels sharp in this soft-spoken world. Australians value honesty, saying things as they are without layers. Canadians value harmony, saying things in a way that keeps everyone comfortable. It's not about who's right. It's about how each culture defines kindness. For an Australian, Canadian politeness can feel distant, like everyone's wearing emotional winter coats. For Canadians, Australians can come across as rough, loud, or too direct. And somewhere in between, both sides are trying to connect, speaking the same language, but not quite speaking the same way. Australians talk about the weather as small talk. Canadians talk about it as survival. The first time you experience a real Canadian winter, it's almost cinematic. Snow falling under orange streetlights, people bundled in layers, the world turning quiet under a white blanket. It's beautiful and brutal. Days become shorter, colder, darker. The sunlight that Australians take for granted turns into a rare luxury. Suddenly, life revolves around warmth, heating bills, thick jackets, indoor spaces. You understand why Canadians love coffee so much. It's not just a drink, it's a form of heat. Australians, used to barbecues and beaches, struggle with the stillness of winter. The streets empty. The parks go silent. You spend more time inside, and isolation becomes part of the rhythm. But with that cold comes community. You see neighbors helping each other shovel driveways, strangers offering rides in snowstorms. It's a different kind of connection, one born not from sunshine, but survival. Canadians endure together quietly, while Australians thrive alone, loudly. Two forms of resilience, both strong, but forged by completely different worlds. If Australia feels like an open-air concert, Canada feels like a slow, thoughtful song. Australians carry a natural looseness, a kind of social rhythm that says, "You'll be right." Canadians, in contrast, move with precision. They plan, they schedule, they think before they speak. To an Australian, that caution feels almost mysterious, a politeness that borders on perfection. You rarely hear raised voices. Arguments are subtle, almost polite negotiations. Life here runs on quiet energy, not chaos. People seem less driven by adventure, more by purpose. The conversations feel softer, but somehow deeper. In Australia, small talk is quick, easy, and funny. In Canada, it's gentle, but when a Canadian opens up, it's genuine. They may not overshare, but when they trust you, that bond runs deep. Australians often mistake the calm for coldness, but it's not. It's just a different rhythm of warmth, one that reveals itself slowly. You begin to realize that Canada doesn't lack energy. It just hides it under layers, much like the people themselves. And when those layers melt, what you find underneath is something Australians aren't used to. Quiet loyalty. After a while, you start to notice how Canadians communicate, not through loud opinions or jokes, but through restraint. There's an elegance in how they hold back, a subtlety that feels both admirable and unfamiliar. In Australia, if someone disagrees with you, they'll tell you immediately, often with humor, sometimes with brutal honesty. But in Canada, disagreement hides behind gentle phrasing, behind that familiar sorry, behind a smile that means, let's keep things peaceful. It's a culture built on balance. Don't offend, don't overstep, don't make anyone uncomfortable. For Australians who are used to sarcasm as affection and debate as bonding, that level of restraint can feel suffocating. You find yourself second-guessing jokes, toning down your energy, wondering if you're being too blunt or too loud. It's not about fear, it's about fitting into a society that values calm over confrontation. Over time, you realize that politeness here is more than manners. It's a form of respect, a quiet social contract that keeps one of the world's most diverse countries functioning smoothly. But for an Aussie, it can feel like being told to speak softer in a room that's already silent. Then comes the quiet, not just in sound, but in spirit. Canadians are friendly, yes, but they're private. They value space. They keep their lives compartmentalized: work, home, friends, family, all neatly divided. Australians are used to a blur between all those worlds. You meet someone on Friday and invite them to a barbecue by Sunday. In Canada, that speed feels strange. People need time. Trust takes months, sometimes years. It's not rejection, it's rhythm. But for an Australian, that rhythm can feel painfully slow. You miss the spontaneity of friendship, the warmth of unfiltered laughter, the way people back home open up without thinking twice. Here, everyone is kind, but few are close. Even the way Canadians greet you, polite, predictable, feels different from the casual chaos of Australia's, "Hey mate, how's it going?" There's an invisible wall made of courtesy and caution. You can see through it, you can wave across it, but you can't walk through it easily. And that's when it hits you. Loneliness isn't just being far from home. It's being surrounded by kindness that never quite lets you in. But as the months pass, something begins to change. You stop comparing Canada to Australia and start understanding it on its own terms. The quiet you once feared becomes comforting. The cold that once bit your skin begins to feel alive. You start to appreciate how Canadians move through the world, with patience, with grace, with empathy that doesn't need to be loud to be real. You begin to see how their restraint isn't coldness, it's care. You learn to slow down, to listen more, to appreciate the silence. And one day, you catch yourself walking through the snow, coffee in hand, and realize you feel at peace. You start to understand that Australia teaches you how to live under the sun. Canada teaches you how to find warmth in the cold. They're opposites that somehow complete each other. Australians bring laughter to the silence, and Canadians bring stillness to the noise. Maybe that's why it all feels so strange at first. Because you're not just adjusting to another country. You're learning another way to be human.